Okay, here is the PowerPoint lecture on Michael. This fits within the social inequality unit, and this is a PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to ask you to just do sort of a journaling assignment on this. You don't necessarily have to take notes on this. I would like you to kind of pay attention to it. You can obviously look at it, pause it, reflect, whatever you want to do. But I want to start making the case that social inequality is real. It's an issue in this country. Also, I'm going to start making the point that, or the argument that some people are advantaged or disadvantaged based on their social environments. I say in all my social science classes, I could have the most biologically intelligently endowed person, the person who is biologically prepared to be artistic, intelligent, creative. If I place him or her in a really terrible social environment with very limited access to stimulation, to opportunities, then that person is not going to be successful by society's standards. And we could kind of reverse that a bit. You could take someone with average or below average ability, motivation, intelligence, and place him or her within a super fantastic, enriching environment, social environment, and that person can be very successful by society's standards. So we're going to start making the argument that the social environment has a lot to do with how someone turns out. Now let me introduce to you the case of Michael. Now I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. You can stop and pause. I'm not going to read all these slides. But Michael, this is a true story. Michael was born in the predominantly black Watts neighborhood of LA, Los Angeles, where racial tensions reached a breaking point after two white policemen scuffled with a black motorist suspected of drunken driving. This resulted in a series of riots that left 34 dead, over 1,000 injured, nearly 4,000 arrested, and $40 million worth of destroyed property. So I'll give you some images. Again, you could kind of stop and pause these. I'm going to kind of get through these. But you're getting the idea of the time and history in this country and the social conditions that Michael grew up in. So here's some images of the social environment that Michael grew up in. Now think for a second and imagine yourself, whether you're white or black, whatever racial, ethnic group you identify with, imagine growing up in an area where these images predominate. You can imagine the turmoil, the strife, especially if you're African American in this area. Again, skipping through some of these images. Again, I urge you to pause these and go back, and you can kind of look at them if you want. Now, Michael's father was largely absent from the beginning. Michael's mother was poor. His mother was arrested and jailed very often. So from a very young age, Michael was placed in and out of foster care when his mom was in and out of jail. So right off the bat, Michael's home life is very unstable, with his mother being in and out of jail. Now, Michael often lived in slums. Now, this isn't an actual picture of the slum that he lived in, but you get the idea of the kind of living conditions that Michael, from a young age, had to endure. In slums like this, and he and his family moved around quite a bit. More foster care for Michael. So he was very likely abused in these settings as well, physically and sexually. Again, as a child, so you can imagine how horrifically traumatic, his life is already. And we know that 52% of all foster children are prescribed psychiatric medications for mental health problems. When out of jail, Michael and his mother and his brothers and sisters lived on a porch for a while. Can you imagine literally living on someone's porch, not even indoors? There was also a time where he and his family lived in a beat-up pickup truck that looked much like this. His mother turned to prostitution to support the family. And Michael is still very young. So his mom is prostituting. In fact, his mother was a pimp for gay male prostitutes in California to make extra money for the family. Easy to pass judgment on Michael's mother and on Michael right off the bat, isn't it? Michael's mother got pregnant 3 times after he was born. So we see some images. His mother was an on and off welfare recipient. His mother turned to drugs to deal with the stress of life. So his mom in and out of prison, shooting up, using drugs, prostituting herself out to make money for the family, and they're still living on porches and in trucks. Michael's mother became involved in multiple violent relationships, and Michael witnessed a lot of this. Often Michael was awakened by rats running through his apartment bedroom. There's an image. Can you imagine waking up in the middle of the night and this is what you see running through the rooms of your apartment? Michael was even bitten by a tarantula. Some of the living conditions that he was subjected to were so filthy and so dangerous that he was actually bitten by a tarantula and lived. The city where Michael lived was a very high crime area. Michael's mother could not even afford an 11-cent pencil for him to go to school. That's how poor his family was. Michael's public schooling was less than sufficient. There were times where actually his classrooms were meeting outside under bridges. Now this is not an image of Watts, California, but this image gives you an idea of the kind of conditions. Can you imagine taking a class like this under under an underpass, under a bridge outside like that? So he witnessed his first murder at the age of 7. Michael watched other kids murder, yes, an ice cream truck driver. Who does that? Stealing $12. They stole $12 from him after they murdered him, and Michael witnessed this. So you start asking questions, how does Michael have a chance to succeed? How does he have a chance to go to school, to get even a higher educational degree, to avoid a life of crime, to stay out of prison himself? Does he have a shot? Well, by the age of 15, Michael had personally witnessed multiple murders. Next, Michael's 16-month-old sister dies as she falls from her second-story apartment. How horrific would that be? So Michael's mother turns to alcohol to cope with the tragic death of her daughter, not to mention that he's lost his sister. Michael personally witnessed his mother being gang-raped and left for dead. Michael is arrested for shoplifting and gang-related fighting by the age of 10. The age of 10. So he already starts his career in the criminal justice system at the age of 10 and starts to latch onto the gang-style criminal life. Michael and his mother are repeatedly victims of robberies, frequently would lose their belongings to thieves. Michael went to jail for stealing food, as a juvenile, for stealing food for his sick mother because they couldn't afford to eat. Michael and his family continue to be hungry in spite of all these efforts not to be so. Michael's mother was found shot dead while Michael was in jail at the age of 15. So this guy, Michael, he younger than you guys are right now, and he's already experienced all of this stuff in life, all of this by the age of 15. So now we start looking at people, especially minorities in inner cities, who, look at social conditions like this: high poverty, lots of crime, illegal drugs, mom and dad absent, or mom and dad in and out of jail. And we're not stereotyping African American people here. That's not what we're doing. We're just making the case that, I don't care if you're black, if you're white, again, I don't care what race, ethnicity, social group you identify with, if you are in this situation and you are raised in these social conditions, are you going to have much of a chance to succeed, to climb that ladder, the proverbial ladder, if you will, and be successful by society standards? I submit probably not. Now certainly there are cases where people have come from conditions like this and they have persevered, they have been resilient, and they have risen above, but those cases are few and far between. We're going to call that the end of this part. I have another slideshow that I want to show you that kind of gives you the opposite side of this picture, so we'll call that the end of this part.